Welcome back, everyone. So what I'm going to be doing today is spreading fertilizer out on our hayland. I've got 2.5 tons of fertilizer right here. Today we're going to be throwing it out on the ground. We finally got some rain coming in the forecast. It's been so dry, y'all. I mean, normally the early springtime is typically a kind of a wet time for us. And it's not been. Our grasses and stuff are running so far behind this year compared to the last few years, which part of that I think is a lot to do with the really cold winter we had. You know, everything just got really chilled and frozen out. But also, I mean, you can just see it in the grass. You can tell it's wanting to grow. But we haven't had any rain on it to make it happen. But we finally have us a decent chance of rain coming up in the next couple of days. And so I wanted to take advantage of that and get some fertilizer put out. Now, if you're not familiar with chemical fertilizers, you don't want to throw it out on the ground and have it lay there for 2 or 3 weeks, because the sun will pretty much evaporate it and you'll lose most of your potency to the sun evaporating it, and you won't get your full benefit from the fertilizer. So I always like to, if I can, spread my fertilizer right before a rainstorm comes in. But anyways, we're going to take our chances on it. We're going to put out fertilizer today. I'm not fertilizing all of my hayland. I have more hayland to cut this year than I've ever cut in my life on my own. And so I'm somewhat nervous about that, and at the same time excited. We're not fertilizing it all. Everything that I'm going to be cutting this year for hay got limed last year, or last fall. So we're good there. This place over here is like my main hay place. And then I've got another little patch that we'll be doing today. And that's all I'm going to put fertilizer on. I want to make sure this thing's closed. It was open. This old spreader here, I've had this thing for years. Bought it from my neighbor right after he quit farming. He had actually just bought it new, like prior to him quitting farming, and never really used it. I bought it from him, and he's actually been passed away for, I don't know, a while, several years, at least 15 years probably. So that tells you, I've spread a whole lot of fertilizer and stuff with that spreader right there. I am using a 14 today. I usually like to spread something that's a little bit higher in nitrogen than the other two numbers, but this just kind of happened to be what I could get my hands on. And 14 usually is a pretty good fertilizer. Works really good for grass, but I would prefer to have something a little higher in nitrogen. All right, I'd say that's about full. All right, before I get started, I am already predicting that somebody in my comment section is going to say, well, you're hurting the land by putting out chemical fertilizers, or chemical fertilizers aren't sustainable, or why would you put chemical fertilizers on your land, and a lot of that stuff. And I'm not going to argue with any of that. It's honestly, all of it's probably true. I don't know. I really don't. But I can tell you this. I have no other option to build up this grassland over here but to put on chemical fertilizers. I don't have the means to get that much manure to build it up organically. You know, we do add lime, and I guess that's considered organic. But, you know, I just don't have the means to do it. And if it wasn't for chemical fertilizers, this land right here wouldn't have been suitable to cut for pasture, cut for hay several years ago. because I have seen it time after time after time. If you don't constantly lime or fertilize hayland and without putting something back, you think about hayland, you're cutting all that growth off and taking it away from there. So you each year you cut hay, you're constantly just draining the soil. And so you have to put something back in order to have good hay. And if you don't have good hay, well, then your animals aren't going to be very healthy. So, it's kind of like a double-edged sword there. Without using these chemical fertilizers, yes, they're expensive. Yes, they're not sustainable. I will 100% agree with that. But without them, the farming industry would look way different than what it does right now. I'm all for sustainable agriculture. I'm all for regenerative agriculture. I try to do that in every way I can possible. But there's just some things that most farmers like us, we don't have the means to do it regeneratively. Now, I could bring cows over here, and one day I would love to have this fenced in over here and put cows on it. But it's not my land. And so it's hard to justify putting a fence up that's going to cost you money on somebody else's property, not knowing what the future holds for this place. The lady who owns it is a relative of mine, and she has told me several times to fence it in and put cows on it. But the future is uncertain. I have no prediction of what's going to happen with this place. As far as I know, it would devastate me to see it. But the way things are going around here right now in our area, this place in 10 years' time could be covered in houses. And that's just the simple truth of it. That's the way most farmland in my area is starting to go. The family farms are the kids don't want nothing to do with them. So when the older people die off, the kids inherit the farm, they split it up, and they sell it. And 9 times out of 10, when it gets split up, somebody else buys that smaller portion of that farm and puts a house on it. So let's just say they split a farm up into 4 different lots. Well, what was all one big chunk of open farmland is now 4 smaller lots of land that 4 different houses have been built on. And that's just how things are going around here. And I have no control over that. Yes, I wish I could buy up all the land around here and preserve it and keep it farmland and keep it the way I remember it being when I was a kid. But the fact of the matter is, I don't know how anybody could financially do that, because land is selling for so expensive now that the normal average person in my area just probably doesn't have the means to pay those outrageous prices per acre that people are getting nowadays. And like I said, that's just the simple facts of it. If this place right here ever comes up for sale or I have the opportunity to buy it, I will do everything I possibly can to try to buy it. However, there's no guarantee, because who knows what it will sell for when that time comes. So until then, I try to take the best care of it I can. I keep fertilizing it because I am using it as my own place here. So I'm trying to take care of it. I wish I had ways to be more regenerative about taking care of it. And the other places that we're going to fertilize today too, I don't know what the future holds for those. Honestly, I'm just cutting the hay off of them so the people who own them don't have to keep them bush hogged or mowed. That's the simple way all this works. Who knows? Every place that I cut for hay, none of them belong to us. And every place that we cut for hay could potentially in 5 to 10 years' time have houses sitting on it. And there's nothing I can do about that. But anyways, off of the depression note, because every time I think about the future of what our area looks like, I get somewhat depressed on it. Because so much has changed in just the short time I've been alive. And so in some ways, like I said, it's depressing to think about what it'll look like 10, 20 years down the road. I hope that I'm wrong about that. But things have changed big time around here. And once again, like I said, there's nothing I can do about it. I don't have the financial ability to buy up every single tract of land around me that comes up for sale. I just don't. And I don't think many people in this world do have that ability. But anyways, that's enough depressing talk. I done got myself all down in the dumps now. I'm going to get back to being happy and spread some fertilizer out. And just like I said, you know, I agree, it's not sustainable. It's not. But it's what we have to do if we want to get a good cutting of hay to feed our livestock. And in turn, you know, the cost of this fertilizer and stuff, if we have a good rainy season, chances are we'll turn off more hay than what we need. And we can sell some of it and recoup part of that cost that goes back into making hay. So, let's get it going here. Time to refill again. Another topic I'd like to touch real quick is actually making hay. You know, is it worth making your own hay? Is it financially better to make your own hay? And honestly, I'd have to say that really depends on how much hay you use. But also, do you have hay land available to you? And that's a big determining factor. If you don't have hay land available to you, then obviously, you know, it's not worth it to cut your own hay. But when you look at it from a financial standpoint, you know, when you talk about how much equipment is tied up in making hay. And yes, it can be expensive equipment. At the same time, you can buy some dirt cheap hay equipment. You know, some of this older, outdated stuff that the people who do this kind of stuff for a living, you know, they don't want that old stuff. They want the new stuff that's quick and efficient. So you can buy this old stuff, like I said, what I call outdated, for relatively cheap. And all you have to have is a tractor. You know, most people who do a little bit of farming or homesteading or whatever, you've already got a tractor. And I say most people, I know not all people do, but most people. You've already got a tractor, so you can find you some relatively cheap pieces of hay equipment on Facebook Marketplace, and you can be in the hay business for a few $1,000s. Now, Do you have the ability to work on that equipment is another question. Because if you're not mechanically inclined, there's no way I would go out with an older piece of hay equipment because it will break. And it will break at the worst time possible. It's going to break when there's a thunderstorm coming in and you've got a bunch of hay on the ground and you need to get it baled up. That's when your hay baler is going to break. However, you can always learn how to work on it. But the one thing that I really like about making my own hay is knowing that I'm not relying on somebody else to get me my hay. Because without my hay, our livestock can't make it through the winter. And just the simple fact of knowing that I'm the one responsible for that honestly takes a lot of stress off of me. With the amount of hay land that we cut for the little amount of livestock that we have, I am guaranteed, even in the worst drought situation, most likely we're going to have, if not enough hay to get us through the winter, we're going to have a substantial part of that. And just having that, knowing that I'm going to have it, you know, as long as I'm physically able, as long as nothing bad happens, that relieves a bunch of stress from me anyways. And plus, I enjoy doing it, y'all. I absolutely love messing with hay. It's like everything else. It has its aggravating times, but what don't? It's just, I love being out on the tractor, being out in the field, working for hours at a time. There's a certain amount of peace you get from that you don't get from really anything else. And I don't even know how to explain it unless you do it. When you're on a tractor, and I ain't talking about riding a tractor for 10, 15 minutes. I mean, when you're on a tractor for hours and hours straight, you have a lot of time to think. You have a lot of time with just yourself. And it's honestly something that I would hate to know I had to give up, because it's, I don't know, I can't explain it. Words can't explain what I'm trying to say. I know what I mean, but I don't know how to relay it to y'all. But anyways, we got the second hopper full. I guess it's time to go sling this out. Across my field here, you'll see a brown haze, and a lot of that is broom straw, which is partly the reason I put lime on this last fall, trying to get rid of that broom straw. And the other reason it looks so bad right now is because I mowed this early in the fall last year, and the broom straw had time to come back out after being cut. But that's why the broom straw looks as bad in it as it does right now. All that right out of there is broom straw. But there is grass up under that broom straw. Good grass too. Okay, so now I'm gonna make my passes over here on the far side of this place. I got a little field here and a little field right over here. So the way I do this when I'm fertilizing, especially this place over here, because it is spread out. The field over there where we just started on is a lot bigger than what's over here on this backside. So I just made all of my passes over there running one way. And I got covered, pretty good coverage from this backside all the way to the front side of the property over here. So over here on this side of the creek, I'm gonna run long ways, and then I'll split it up and do that right there. Same way with this little field right here behind me. And then this over here will be done. But I wanna make sure I get me a good, decent coverage over all of it before I go and make my second pass over this over here. And over here, I'll be running opposite direction of what I did to start with. I hope that makes sense. But it's to make sure you get good coverage and you're not missing anything is why you'll run like long ways with the field and then run side to side with the field. And you kind of make a, like a checkerboard pattern with your, with the way you're spreading. I'm gonna say that I'm probably looking at about 2 more hopperfuls over here. Maybe 1 more. 1 more might get it, but I think probably 2 more. And then we'll be heading to our next place. I know some of you, we're talking about making your own hay and stuff. And you may think, well, my tractor's not big enough to make hay. I don't have a big enough tractor to pull hay equipment. And most of this modern hay equipment, like the new stuff, there's a few pieces you can buy for smaller tractors, but I'd agree with that on a lot of the new stuff. Except there is these companies that make this little miniature hay equipment. I definitely wouldn't want to use that on a big scale, but that might be interesting to try out some of that little hay equipment if you had, maybe at the most like 5 or 6, 7, 8 acres of hay you're going to cut, or maybe even an acre, But if you're on that small of a scale, some of this little mini hay equipment might be might be worth a look at. I don't know anything about that, never seen anybody that's used any of that except for on YouTube videos. But what I'm going to recommend is when you get into a lot of this older hay equipment, most of it can be pulled with a reasonably small tractor. A lot of hay equipment, you will need some type of hydraulics or something on a tractor, unless you're using a square baler. But if you're using a round baler, you're going to have some hydraulics. But you can buy like a small sickle mower, or even a small disc mower like I've got that y'all seen me use in years past, and run all of that with a relatively small tractor. I'm gonna say, about a 35 horsepower tractor. The horsepower is not gonna make as big a difference as the weight of the tractor. So I wouldn't want to hook it to a really small compact tractor. But if you've got a good size frame tractor, you can probably make hay. Hay rakes can be pulled with small tractors. Honestly, I prefer to rake hay with a smaller tractor. And then most of these old square balers, all of those can be pulled with a small tractor. And even a whole lot of the small round balers like the one I just bought last year. It makes a 4x4 round bale. And I believe you could easily pull that baler with about a 40 to 45 horsepower tractor. My John Deere is a 45 horsepower, and it handles that baler just fine. If you were on some steep land, four-wheel drive is probably a requirement with a baler like that on a tractor that small, because the baler will push you around, and if you've got four-wheel drive, you'll most likely hold yourself back a lot better. But that's something to think about. Don't think just because you've got a small tractor that you can't make your own hay, because you might be pleasantly surprised that you can. And if you've got a small tractor, guess what? That means the small hay equipment is actually going to be cheaper than the bigger hay equipment. So you can actually get out cheaper than some people could. Some people that's trying to do it with a bigger tractor. Now, if you've got a bigger size tractor, all the sky's the limit on the hay on the equipment you can find. So now I'm going to make my pass across this bigger field here, and over there around the bend, I'm going to make my pass going this way, and we'll be done over here. Show y'all this real quick over here on the edge of this field. Look at that. Daffodils. Daffodils are all over this place, and I think that's just, I love seeing daffodils everywhere, especially where there's not evidence of a house or anything like that now. The old house is still over here, and there's daffodils all around that old house as well, but these are the only ones that still bloom, and all the rest of them bloomed just a few weeks ago, and they're done now. But I think it's cool to see the evidence of people being here in the past. There's no telling how long that clump of daffodils has been there. I mean, it's probably been there a really long time, but I think that is so cool just to see that kind of stuff, and it reminds you that this used to be somebody's home place here. And that's, I don't know, stuff like that, I think it's just so cool. All right, back to work. believe I've got pretty good coverage over this over here. Now be aware that you can put too much fertilizer out too and do the grass more harm than good. But I've just got a good, even, moderate coating of fertilizer over the whole place over here. Over here to my other place I'm going to be fertilizing. Now this particular field is split in half actually by a driveway, but we got this side and then over on this side, and you can see that this actual section right here has got a lot of broom straw in it, but years ago this was a garden, and I don't think it was ever sowed back in grass. Once you get out of this little square, there is no broom straw over the knoll there. And then this has got a little bit of broom straw in it too. But once again, this is a spot that we limed last fall, and I cut this one early as well, and the broom straw had time to kind of shoot back up before frost and everything hit it. And I'm thinking that this year, being that we limed this, we shouldn't have near as much broom straw in these two fields, because I actually limed it really, really heavy too. So hopefully this fall we don't see this broom straw come back like it is out here right now. Well, let's get the tractor unloaded and fill up the hopper and start slinging them little white pellets out. One thing that really drained down all of the land, the farmland around my area, is all of it used to be tobacco land. And while I don't really want to talk bad about tobacco, because tobacco is what pretty much kept this area going, well, forever, up until the last probably 20 years. And but tobacco requires a ton of cultivation, a ton of chemicals, and I really think that all of that kind of helped drain our land and make it not near as fertile as what it used to be. But once again, like I said, I am not talking bad about tobacco at all, because if it weren't for tobacco, people around here would have never made it back in the old days. Lots of families were brought up on tobacco. That's pretty much over the whole state of North Carolina, not just my area, but the whole state of North Carolina was heavy into tobacco production at one time. that's all the fertilizing I'm gonna do on my hay land here. So y'all keep your fingers crossed we get that rain we need. Now I'm gonna run back to the house, and I've got to feed a little bit of that hay that we have to have so badly. So anyways, let's run on back and get that done. So before I get back out on the main road here, I do want to mention that none of this land that we are doing hay on is our land. So just keep that in mind. I don't want y'all thinking that I'm able to cut our own hay because we've got a ton of land or something like that, because that is the farthest thing from the truth, because we definitely don't have a whole lot of land. But all of the land that we cut for hay is neighbors' land, and you know, just friends and people of the community and stuff like that. So just keep that in mind if you're looking to get in the hay business yourself or wanting to cut your own hay, that you don't have to own the land to do it. While it is nice, I wish I owned enough land to cut my own hay. You don't have to. And this is a good way to take advantage of the fact that you may not have no land, you know. Now, don't expect to go out there and not put no money into it, because you'll probably have to put money into it. You'll probably have to put lime on it. You'll probably have to put fertilizer on it. You know, that field may require some work to get to that stage of making good hay, but if you can get an agreement with them, you know, saying that you're going to be able to cut it long enough to at least get your money worth out of it, then go for it. We just always try to encourage people to do things even though they think they may not be able to. Just like you think you may not be able to cut your own cut your own hay just because you don't have the land. So I got everything spread and top dressed, and we're waiting on the rain now.
Yep, hopefully we'll get it.
I gotta feed some of that hay, so I gotta have my gate opener here.
Handy dandy gate opener.
The handy dandy gate opener. So they were always hungry.
They've eat it to the ground.
Yeah, they've done away with it, ain't they?
Yep. I think they figured out how to pull it out, though. You notice how much is laying around it?
Yeah, around the ring.
Yeah. All right, get out the way. Go on now, Cookie.
Y'all see how this all works in a circle here? Hay makes cows happy. Fertilizer makes our hayland happy. And happy cows make Andy's wife happy.
Happy cows equals happy wife.
That's right. Look at them. Act like they ain't had nothing to eat in years.
They love new hay.
They do. Well, anyways, y'all, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Hope you enjoyed riding around on the tractor with me.
Yeah, it's just part of it.
That's right.
Yep.
Got to make that grass grow.
That's right.
I guess that's going to do it for today's video.
Yep. Till we see y'all on the next one.
Y'all have a good one.
Have a good one.